large crowd, and the screen's working again. No, still not working. So we have one guest. Yes. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, everybody. I'm Jason Blair. I'm the officer of the High Crime Club. So we send our representative every Friday to meetings to come see what you guys are up to and see what we can come up with. So thank you guys for having me. It's great.
Hey.
Bob's here somewhere.
Hi, Bob.
Am I late?
You're right on time. So if you could see my screen, we had some recognitions. Chris and Lisa running. Happy anniversary. There's Bob Johnson with a hippo. And then I guess Crystal Perez did some Halloween painting. So we'll cover that again next week. Hopefully will be a screen that we can use. And then over the weekend, Terry, if you want to come up and talk a little bit about what you were up to.
So my weekend was sublime on Saturday and very, very sad on Sunday. So we're going to start with Saturday. The Rotary Foundation dinner recognized us very heavily for our giving last year to the Rotary Foundation. This says the Rotary Foundation #2 club in the district out of 48 clubs. Oh, great job. For annual per capita fund giving. This is 100% foundation giving club, average of 100 and 100% participation. There were only 3 of these given in the whole district. I think there were only 2 of these given. And this is every Rotarian every year, which says that everybody donated at least $25 and our overall average was at least 100. And to be correct, our overall average was $754 per capita. So there were only 3 of these given in 48. So everybody gets a hand. What? We won. And we'll hang these up. So Sunday, Marty and I drove down to Rotary Park and we went to a memorial for past district governor Bruce Campbell. That's right. Bruce and I were 2 of the first 3 ever assistant governors in this district in 1999. The district leadership plan was just getting going, and so we got asked to be the first 2 of 3. The third one, Franz Wortenweiler, was from Napa. So we spent lots of time in lots of people's living rooms talking about Rotary, about what it could look like, what we could do, how it could work in our district in particular. We helped move the needle just a little bit. There was a lot of backlash against the idea of having assistant governors from past governors. So anyway, we spent a lot of time. He passed away in July. He had a stroke and died at the age of 83. So being there Sunday was like seeing the middle part of my Rotary career running on a loop. His wife had put out a table of mementos, and I walked by and I pointed to this photo album to a picture, and I took that picture, and his daughter walked by and she said, "You made him this album, don't you remember, in 2005? I'm like, no, I don't, but then I saw that it was my handiwork. So what I was reminded of was several things. It's the meaning of life. We had this talk. So be kind to each other. We don't know how long we have. Just, appreciate what we have. Eat off the best china. Eat the expensive chocolate. Well, you're too young for this yet. That last one get to yet. And Drink the best tequila. Drink the best tequila. So that's what I learned this weekend. Thank you.
Terry, quick question. The number 2 club in the district, was that per capita or
For the annual fund per capita. We were sandwiched between Sebastopol, Sunrise, and Sebastopol.
And then we have a couple of unfamiliar faces. Where'd Shoshana go? Oh, hey. And then Matthew, would you like to introduce yourself just briefly?
Okay, I'm Matthew Marshall. I'm with the Redwood Coast Energy Authority, and I'm your guest speaker today.
We'll just. All right, there was a board meeting on Tuesday. I'll keep it brief because there's a surprise next week for one of our members. But Madison, are you on the call?
Yeah, I
I
am.
have an update from Madison Berube. She's one of our scholarship recipients. It's gonna be hard to hear her. Maybe she could come back another time. This is not working.
Oh, it's not the audio.
Yeah,
Okay.
none of it's working. So sorry, Madison, maybe next week.
Yeah, no worries. I can come back.
So DEI committee had a meeting, and there's a Diwali festival tonight from 5 to 7. Does anybody know anything about it?
We had a little, it was just sort of a DEI movie we were trying to share with folks up at HSU, which is the time there. So folks were interested, other cultures, unions, folks in the community are welcome. Just want to make sure we're different things going on. If I was really good, I would have looked exactly what that festival meant.
It's the Festival of Light.
There you go. If anybody knows it,
So it's at the Goodwin Forum from 5 to 7. Maggie, do you want to talk about homeless in Humboldt? They're doing a screening, looks like 2 screenings, October 25th and October 26th. This is some funding.
That's what I would have said.
Yeah, so homeless and Humboldt folks, they've come and presented to us, and they now have 3 videos. The most recent one is about Angela and William, and they're showing that at the Minor Theater on the 26th, which is next Wednesday. And Area 1 Agency on Aging is supporting them in that because it is about 2 older adults and kind of the challenges they're going through. And then if you want to see the first 2 and haven't seen them yet, they're showing those the night before at the sanctuary. So and these are all free. So if you haven't had a chance to see them, it's worth seeing. And I've noticed that a couple of these people who have done these are now working for KIAM. So they're doing interviews and videos and stuff. So the 2 that were really interested in doing this kind of work have actually found lots of jobs, which is kind of cool. So anyway, that's it. Hope you can go.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What is being broadcast on your screen share is the specialties of the house.
Huh. Well, those are important. Let's see.
Oh, that's funny.
Maybe the video's on the wall at the
How about now?
And now I've got a lot of phone numbers. I'm just gonna call it.
Okay.
I think your bank account is now up there.
I'm not. I'm gonna stop it because this is silly. Sorry, guys. And now it's on the wrong meeting. So I wanted to get an update from Taste of the Holidays. There was a meeting last night.
Taste of the Holidays, yeah. Not okay, come on. Ready to go.
Taste of the Holidays is coming up. How's ticket sales going?
Great.
Good? All right, yeah, we don't have an update yet, as far as, tickets from online. I think there's been a smattering, maybe like 5 or so purchased from online. So it really comes down to, really us in the club, selling and getting the word out. Remember, it's November 17th. We might have some ask for some raffle items. The vendors and a lot of businesses, I think Bob just got in touch with us, and Redwood Capital is going to send us a basket. But we're looking for some football theme items to include in a basket. So if anybody has something football theme related that we could put in for a basket, a fire pit or s'mores package, pet basket, a Yeti cooler would be great. We're trying to keep some cheese cool and put together a nice thing there. Toys for kids and family fun night basket, and minor movie gift certificate. So if anybody has anything or can donate to a basket, that would be wonderful. Yes.
Do you have a price range request?
You know, the baskets are anywhere from like $150 to $200 in value, right around there.
And is it going to be a ticket raffle?
Yeah, it will be like our normal ticket raffle. Yeah, and then we may have like one large item for silent auction.
Isn't it all silent?
No, it,
Oh, gotcha.
yeah, you
We don't
get,
have
what
an
is it?
ex- okay, we just need to-
Yeah, normally it's a ticket, yeah. Yeah, I know, it's been a long time, right? So anyway, it's time to get back in the swing of things, start thinking about the taste and how much fun it's gonna be. We have 19 vendors so far signed up, and 11 alcohol and spirit vendors, so it should be a lot of fun. Thank you.
This may transition slowly into the breakup holidays.
And those meetings are Thursdays? Are they gonna be Thursdays
Yeah.
at 6 o'clock?
For all of November, for the most part, Thursday, 6 o'clock, Classic Row. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience.
All right, would you like to come introduce our speaker?
Yeah. What I like him to.
Yeah, you should never.
Good morning, everyone. So it is my pleasure to introduce a colleague and friend, Matthew Marshall from the Redwood Coast Energy Authority. And I think probably most everyone in here has heard of the Redwood Coast Energy Authority, and we're going to learn more about it this morning and some of the great projects they're doing. Unfortunately, without the PowerPoint, which he brought, he will speak and I will do pantomime of the slides and act out the various, yes, exactly. I didn't have my costume for the interpretive dance, but so Matthew is a graduate of Cal Poly, Humboldt, and is been executive director of the RCAS for over 11 years, which doesn't seem that long, but my gosh, yeah, because I remember when he came on. And prior to that, he's with the city of Denver with their greenhouse gas reduction program. And he's very involved in a lot of things. He's president of the California Community Choice Association, and we'll probably hear a little bit about community choice here in a minute. But he's also on the Trinidad Coastal Land Trust, the Redwood Parks Conservancy, the Chamber of Commerce, where he chairs the Business Industry Committee for the city in the city of Eureka. It doesn't say this on your bio, but he is also the proud father of 2 young kids, Alex and Ian. And he's a bagpipe player. And so, yes, he loves to do that. And he and his wife Stacy are the new owners of the Moonstone Beach. So that was not on his bio, but I want to throw all that in. So welcome, come on up, and let me get my costume on.
I'm going to bring my coffee since I don't have to deal with slides or anything. So, thanks, Greg. And yeah, if anyone, my side note, not take my work hat off. If anyone wants to book an event at the Moonstone Beach House, call my wife. So the Redwood Coast Energy Authority is a local government joint powers agency of the county and all of the cities, similar to the Waste Management Authority and the Transit Authority. And so what I was asked to talk about today was just a little bit about who we are, but then offshore wind, which is picking up steam. And so I was just going to cover a little bit about like why is that happening here? What's kind of the background, and what's going on now and next steps. So as far as what we do, we were founded in 2003 with the goal of supporting sustainable energy initiatives for our member governments, which is the city and all the counties, the water district, and that's a lot of that's been energy efficiency over the years. We do a lot of work with businesses and retrofitting lighting and things like that. And it's expanded over the years to include electric vehicle charging infrastructure, renewable energy planning. We worked a lot with our member governments on doing energy planning for general plans and climate action planning. And in 2017, we launched what's called a community choice aggregation or community choice energy program, which gives us local control over the supply part of electricity. So, PG&E still owns and operates all the poles and wires, but we have local control through a local public agency of where that electricity comes from and setting the price for that. So since we launched, we've consistently had slightly lower rates than PG&E. Our board adopted the goal of maximizing the use of local renewable resources to meet our energy needs while maintaining competitive rates with PG&E. And so we've always been able to be a little bit cheaper than PG&E while investing in local programs and local energy development. We built the solar battery storage microgrid at the airport. So RCAS owns and operates that. We did that in partnership, obviously, with the county and Cal Poly Humboldt and PG&E. But as far as kind of owning and operating it, that's a small power plant that we have here. We have a contract with Humboldt Sawmill Company down in Scotia, and then we're looking at adding more solar locally, but also offshore wind. And so the offshore wind piece, the reason why it's not just locally interesting, we've been working on this for since 2017. It was funny because the day that the federal sale notice for the auction, which is going to happen December 6th, came out, my Facebook feed memory from 5 years ago to the day was when we first signed an MOU with an offshore wind company to start looking at how we could do this in Humboldt County. So it's been about 5 years in the making. Actively, we'd identified it as an opportunity before that, but when we started working on seeing how can we actually make this happen in Humboldt, and the reason why we saw that opportunity and why developers in the state and the federal government saw that opportunity is because we have one of the best wind resources in the entire country. If you look at a map of wind resource off the coast of Northern California and Southern Oregon, is literally the best wind resource in the lower 48 United States. And so it's this sort of world-class renewable energy opportunity. The thing that's only made it come to sort of the head in the last 5 years is that the water gets really deep off of California. So most offshore wind you see in Europe and now on the East Coast is fixed bottom, where there's a foundation like this that's sitting on the ocean floor. And so to do deep water offshore wind, you need floating foundations, which sounds crazy to put a giant wind turbine on a floating foundation, but it's just using mostly technology that's been developed in oil and gas, over the last decades and decades for deep water, oil exploration and extraction. And so they're basically taking that existing information and saying, well, gosh, let's scale it down. Let's put a wind turbine on it. And, you're going to make adjustments, but there's a lot of technical capabilities for building crazy big things that float out in the ocean and, don't get destroyed in hurricanes and things like that. And so, so the technology really has been starting to be deployed in Europe, and now there's multiple floating wind projects in Portugal and Scotland, which, when people say our weather's really bad, it's well, the North Sea off of Scotland isn't exactly known for its climate. So it's, we're not the proving ground of this technology. And so, the technology in the last few years really started to get to that commercialization point. We actually issued, because we wanted to see this happen in a way that wasn't negative for the community. Back in 2018, the beginning of 2018, we issued a request for qualification for development partners. And so we said, well, there's this opportunity, the technology is getting there, the wind is there, we've got these local renewable goals. We don't want to see this be sort of a negative, extractive kind of big company comes in, kind of runs roughshod. If they're successful, then it has, unnecessary community impacts, or they're not successful because they didn't do it right. And then we don't get anything. And so we really wanted to have it be sort of more of a community-led process. And so we said, okay, if you're a developer, because we need somebody that's got the billions of dollars and the technical capabilities to pull it off, do you want to partner with the community and really have like a public-private partnership? We got a pretty strong response back then in 2018, and ended up picking a team. We actually submitted because the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management that does federal leasing for offshore wind and everything else in federal waters, so 3+ miles off the coast, is BOEM. They hadn't really been up here. They'd started to look at the central coast of California down near Morro Bay, but they have a process where you can say, hey, we got an idea for a lease area. And so we kind of did community engagement for 2018, looked at kind of where it would go, talking with commercial fishermen and environmental groups and, people that are knowledgeable about, ocean wildlife, and sort of identified an area. And then shortly after we submitted that, so we did that in 2018, BOEM slapped what they call a call area sort of on top of our area. And I have a graphic up here that showed like, okay, they sort of took our area and turned it into sort of an official BOEM area, to pair with the one that they also identified off of Morro Bay. And that was in the end of 2018. And then we had a big long stall, approximately the duration of a federal administration. And then, really the beginning of last year, this year, things sort of started moving again, and BOEM started going through the environmental permitting process and working with the Coastal Commission and everything that was involved in that. And that culminated in, a few days ago, them issuing the final sale notice for an offshore wind auction that'll take place on December 6th. They took the Humboldt wind energy area, which is about 25 miles that way, and carved it into 2 lease areas. So, a developer can only get 1 lease. There's also 3 down off of Morro Bay and the Central Coast. And so on December 6th, they're going to auction off those 5 California wind energy areas. And there's a list of, I think, 47 developers that are qualified to bid on that. And, they're going to be pressing the auction button to secure one of those leases. The team that we, selected, back in 2018 is obviously a contender. They're not guaranteed to get one of those leases, but we hope they do because they've been good partners so far. But, either they get one, there'll be another developer, or maybe it's 2 different developers that we haven't worked with yet. So we'll see. It's kind of a backwards process, but it's sort of based off of the federal oil and gas leasing process that they transferred to wind. And so it's not really, it's like people bid and get a lease area before they've even done any sort of permitting or design. And so, I think one of the things that comes up is like, December 7th or whatever it's going to be, there's going to be headlines that say 2 wind developers just bid maybe $100 million, maybe $200 million. We're not sure what the final, price will be to secure those lease areas. But it's going to be a big number. I mean, the minimum bid is $6 million. And, one of the, I think, there was a Carolina auction earlier this year off of like North Carolina, and those were, I think, 100 to 200 million to secure the leases in the auction. New York had a big auction, and the highest bid was for one of like, I think they had 5 or 6 areas, was $1 billion to get the lease. So with a B, and so the other ones were like, upper, kind of 800, 900 million. So I forget like $4 or $5 billion or something they got from that entire auction. I don't think it's going to be quite that aggressive here because of the floating foundation and kind of different factors in the energy markets. But it's going to be a lot of zeros. But that's really just the start of the process. They don't have permission to build anything. That's just really to get them site control. And then there's going to be a probably, at least 5-year process of environmental studies and permitting. So it's kind of a start line. It's not like the finish line. But, there is going to be, I think a lot of activity. And, one of the things for Humboldt County that, in addition to our wind resource, that's really paired with Humboldt Bay, which has been identified both at the federal and the state level as a prime candidate for becoming like the West Coast hub for offshore wind, like deployment. So, assembly to start, but potentially manufacturing and other, activities, just in the sense that, these things are huge. So if you've seen an onshore wind farm, you're like, oh yeah, I've seen, they're big, right? Well, the offshore ones, because they're not constrained by what you could put on a rail car or a road, because everything's going in and out by the ocean, they're like taller than the Golden Gate Bridge. So like they're massive. And so, one example of that is the TerraGen project that didn't happen because of perhaps inadequate community engagement, among other reasons. That was about 130 megawatt project, kind of similar in scale to the PG&E natural gas plant, if you don't think in megawatts. And that was going to be, 60 some turbines. The same size project in an offshore farm would be like 10 turbines. And so, there's fewer, much larger turbines, like I said, as tall as the Golden Gate Bridge. And so when you think about deploying that, the vertical draft is an issue. So if you're taller than the Golden Gate Bridge, you can't go under the Golden Gate Bridge. And they put these together in the harbor and float them out upright on the foundation, and then anchor them out, where they're being situated. And so, the fact that there's no vertical draft, there's no bridges or power lines or anything to stop you from getting out of Humboldt Bay. Obviously, we're right located at like the best wind resource, and also in the middle of the West Coast. So if things are happening in Oregon, Washington, things are happening in Southern California, we're right in the middle of that. And then, as you all know, there's a lot of underutilized industrial coastal dependent property that's just growing weeds and deteriorating concrete. And so the fact that we have that much space available that's coastal zoned industrial that's not being used, really just even years ago when they started doing assessments of like, where could you put offshore wind harbor facilities on the West Coast, it was like Humboldt. So there's going to have to be a lot of investment. So the first thing we're going to really see probably is investment in port infrastructure. The state's already committed millions of dollars to sort of kickstarting that, and that's going to just keep ramping up. Because obviously, if you want to deploy it from here, you got to build the dock first before you start putting the wind turbines together. And that's where we'll see the turbines is going to be, where they're getting put together in Humboldt Bay before they get towed out 25 miles away.
So when they put in the bid, is it based on money or merit?
It's based on money. So, and it's, again, the process is not ideal, and it's really based off of like oil and gas leasing of like, how much money can we make for the federal treasury? Now, that said, they've actually moved the needle quite a bit from the traditional sort of BOEM process. It's moved a couple notches over the last year. So, that Carolina auction I mentioned, they actually had what they call multi-factor auction. So it's not just cash going to the federal treasury, which is like, it doesn't really help us. And so in the final sale notice, there's actually 30% of like the bid value is for just cash to the federal government. So there's 20% that's focused on investing in workforce development and supply chain. And so one of the things you want to do is make sure that that's domestic. So the BOEM rule says domestic, like United States workforce development supply chain. We really want to try to make sure that's as much as possible Humboldt County local workforce development supply chain, and that's where that long lead time gives us some time to, be active in that. And then there's another 5% for having, commitment for community benefits agreement for users of to thankfully not sue us, because he said you could do whatever you want with the money, but so they formed this organization so that they can bring all of them together, and then they've got a board that represents each port so that they can kind of have a unified voice. And they've, developed sort of a template agreement to say, hey, this is how we want to coexist. And so, that's one of the things that, we're trying to do just as far as our part is like, hey, we want this to not fail. And so we want to make sure that we're helping the developers that, are coming from Norway or wherever and are like, okay, how do we work with this community, environmental groups, tribes, and just the broader population. And then down the road, as the entity that's responsible for electricity, we want to be a power off taker. And so that's, the other piece of leverage we have to say, hey, we want to buy the power, we want it to be from a good project, and we want it to be cost effective. We could be sort of an anchor tenant of the first phase, but again, there's going to have to be other off takers. And you actually mentioned the California Community Choice Association, which this year I'm the president of, which is all the other community choice energy providers, which go farther north, one of the smallest, but goes all the way to San Diego, and now going into the Central Valley. So, CCAs collectively are surveying like 11 million customers in California. We're like a third of the state energy load. And so, as far as what we're doing is like, well, we'll buy a little bit of it, but we're just a little humble, but we also have really close relationships and actually some joint procurement structures so that we can facilitate, the power offtake with those other, local government power providers across the state, like LA County and Alameda County and Silicon Valley that are a lot bigger than us. Here's a question.
When would you estimate, when did you count? All of this will be completed, so this public can start using that.
Yeah, so the hope is, and the permitting process will be, whatever it takes. But the short answer is 2030 is when I think it's feasible for there to be that first phase of, maybe 10 turbines that don't require transmission upgrades to be actually like out in the water producing power if everything goes well. And that aligns with what the state targets sort of assumed was like, oh, we could probably have a little bit happening in Humboldt 10. The transmission upgrades are likely going to take longer than that. And so that's where I think to see more than those first 10, which again, that's big for Humboldt County. That's like a Humboldt County sized project, but the state sized phase, I think would be more in the 2045 range. So my bet, I got a little money riding on this is wind turbines, at least moving out into the ocean by 2030. So.
Then last question.
Well, I just want to give a pat on the back to Matthew and the RCEA, who, traditionally in projects, big project comes, we learn about it kind of mid-phase or towards the end of it, and then people come out and, there's a lot of community dissension sometimes and opposition. And so they were really smart. You talked about bringing the group together to look at this partnership and all, and that was a community-led effort, really diverse group. And I think that was really helpful. And then the Core Hub brought, gosh, I don't know, 45 or so different stakeholders to do a big ask for what we wanted to see in the sale notice. And I think that really affected it too. Didn't get everything we wanted, but we didn't expect so. So it's nice to have all that front loaded. It's a great way to try to work on getting community ideas within a big project, so we don't have a lot of the opposition at the end. And I think we learned a lot from Herigen, this Herigen process. So anyway, pat on the back to Matthew for there. Leading all
Thank you
that.
very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
So the last two things, I just a friendly reminder, Claire and Ian put together a survey that went out in a meeting email. Please participate in that. That's Rotary Youth Exchange. It's a years long process to get even next year's kids started, 23, 24. So please participate there. They've been working so hard and they can your help. And then the raffle.
And while the raffle's getting ready. Oh.
Ready to the round. Ready to wrap.
Before the raffle, sorry. Before the raffle, there was Mike Fabian was online saying, trying to remind us about the
flag raising ceremony, flag lowering ceremony, I can't remember which. It goes one, either it goes up or down, I don't know. But it's on the 11th, on Veterans Day. And he would like to have two, we'd like to have a call, but we'd like to have two vets to fold the flags. So.
What time?
What time? 4 p.m. 4 p.m. So it's a flag lowering. I'm guessing. Thanks, Mike. If you can hear us, they're having trouble hearing us on I don't know why, but
Yeah.
on Zoom. So we're having a lot of technological difficulties. We're going back to cave paintings next week.
We ready? Okay, so everybody got their tickets out. The first number is 7, 6,
Ooh.
3, 9, 1,
Oh.
0.
Just before me.
Now it just sounds like.
More exciting numbers. Because everybody's got the first 4 numbers. You all feel like you can. Yeah, big ones like that. You ready? I'm so excited. All right, $5. I'll be right back with $5. Okay, second ticket. 7,
Oh.
6,
Ooh.
3,
Oh.
9,
Ooh.
0,
Oh.
9, 5,
5, did you say?
7, 6, 3, 9, 0, 9, 5.
How many do I get to take
Just
out?
one, just one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, $5. Okay, I'll be back.
Sure. So a little update, we have, so Justice for Josiah has been going on for 5.5 years now. It'll be 6 years on the 15th of April. And I have helped Charmaine, we have helped Charmaine, Josiah's mom, a number of times. And every year in December, her whole family comes up and they collect a bunch of stuff, bags we fill, backpacks of stuff to give to people in our community that are homeless or in need. And the whole reason for that is because this is what Josiah would do. Sorry. And so it's been wonderful to be by Charmaine's side and to help her in every way that I can and to see the community come out. She literally travels on the 15th of almost every single month, barring COVID times, to do a vigil, not just for Josiah, but for any family who have murdered children and the case is unsolved. And she has partnered with missing and murdered Indigenous peoples and is doing a lot of awareness building for those families who are suffering as well. And I think for a long time, people sort of thought there wasn't enough information. This is probably not going to happen. In my time with Charmaine, there were multiple times over these years that I thought I got to sit down and say, maybe there's another way for you to find peace. And because I just thought maybe there's not enough evidence. Well, Kyle Zollner, there was one bit where something was written wrong. And Kyle Zollner and his lawyers jumped on that and said, this is wrongful arrest. And the week before last in San Francisco, the original verdict came that it was indeed wrongful arrest, and he was awarded $750,000. And which was heartbreaking to the entire police force, to obviously Charmaine and to everyone who cares. And then the judge actually said, however, if I find that there was indeed good cause for his arrest, then he won't get that. And so during that trial, more information than I think a lot of people in this community have ever heard was released. And there is not just probable cause, there is jaw-dropping, substantial evidence that Kyle Zollner was the only person in an argument, was the only person in a physical alteration. He was the only person who had any reason because everybody else was Josiah's friends. There is DNA evidence on the murder weapon that was found, and Kyle Zollner was literally covered with Josiah's blood, front and back, because they were on the ground and Josiah was bleeding in his chest. So Kyle said that came from a nosebleed. there's a lot of information that the judge said this is not right. And so the judge's verdict in saying there was absolutely probable cause and the police did exactly what they were supposed to do in arresting him. That information is now available. And there's two things. I hope that you will, in whatever way that you can, say, as community members, we would like this to go to trial. And I will send you the judge's information and you can read it and you will be stunned, just like I was. We would like this to go to trial. And our DA has said the only way that we will send this to trial is if there is an eyewitness who comes forward who says that they saw this happen. Well, murder cases are solved all the time without an eyewitness, and this is not necessary, and there is sufficient evidence, and this needs to go to trial. But we as a community need to say, excuse me, we want this to happen. And so that's one thing that I hope in whatever way you will help me do. And on the 15th, when Charmaine travels every single month from the Riverside area, it would be beautiful if there were more than the 20 of us who have been standing with her for these years, and more people saying we really should support this. That's one thing. I would love it if you would help with that. The other is we're collecting stuff to give to people in need, because that's what Josiah would do. And what we really need are socks and toothpaste, toothbrushes, soaps, small shampoos and conditioners, period products, little food things that don't have to be opened with a can opener or refrigerated, and coats in good, clean working condition, and blankets. And we're the city will take it at City Hall, and also I have a whole room that is dedicated to this effort, so I will take it too. So anyway, if you feel moved to ask our DA to please let this go to trial, that would be a beautiful thing for you to do. If you would like to give good stuff that Charmaine and all of us as a community can do in DJ's memory to help people in need, that would be wonderful. And the other thing is hold her in your prayers. Thank you.
On the 15th?
What's that?
What time?
15th. On the 15th, we always do it at 5 in front of the courthouse in Eureka if it's on a weekday. And if it's on the weekend, we do it on the plaza right here. And on December 10, on the plaza is where we are giving away things to people in need. And I'm collecting all.
You are very generous of you. There's backpacks for kids going on right after this. Yep. Do you have people to deliver?
Mike is delivering to Arcata High or Arcata Elementary, and I think we're delivering to Troy and McDonald.
Unless somebody else wants to jump in and help.
It's really easy, delivery, people think it's gonna take a lot of time, but it really doesn't. It's like 20 minutes because you just go in a circle and you're done. It's very quick.
So it's still in the Pacific Union?
It's, yes. Yeah.
All right. Any other last? Shoshana?
Homecoming day for our high school.
Oh, and we have Otto is on the court, right?
Yeah.
I believe I read that. He's like nominated for homecoming day.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
We don't do, they don't do King anymore, but he's running. I'd say he has a pretty good chance. He's pretty popular.
Vanessa, also, Lazo was on the soccer team and their last home game is the 27th at wherever they played. Did they play? I don't even know where they played. Are they playing? Do they play on that field down there, or do they play on
the new field?
They play on the new field.
Okay.
They what? Say that?
They play down the new track.
Okay, great. So I think it's around 5 o'clock. I'm not sure what time, but if you guys want to watch it, soccer would be fun to have cheer on.
Claire on the street has been nominated as homecoming team.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Did you just say that?
Yeah.
That's fire. Totally. That's checked out.
Right.
At 1:30, right?
Great viewing space, yep, you don't have to come down to the plaza. You can come.
What time is it?
It's like between 12:30 and 1.
What time is the break?
Between 12:30 and 1.
Oh, sorry.
Man, I don't know about the rest of brain lock up in real life.
All right. There's not a quiz at the end of this. Yes.
I have some posters, if anybody wants to take me to their office, I have about 4 or 5 left. Go on to your office and post that. For Taste the Holidays, sorry.
All right. Hey, guys.